Okay, we are live. Happy Sunday, everyone. Hope everyone's week was well. Today, I'm just kind of taking this one rough and on the fly, and I'm going to tear through all the basic stuff to kind of get to the main juicy point, which is what I really wanted to emphasize. So let's go into it and get ourselves a bigger screen here. Prices. Where do prices go this week? Essentially sideways. You look at the numbers, the hour, the day, the week. It was a sideways week. Bitcoin did recover related to the ETFs. The main price of Bitcoin did go back up over 40. Consolidation phase related to the Bitcoin ETFs. We're going to hop over to the weekly post for TINYCRYPTOBLOG.com, where I do a weekly post to let you see the things from 10,000 feet, basically kind of see the signals, look at the headlines, and start to plug things into the bigger picture. With the Bitcoin ETFs, a lot of the news has just been about what's been the outflows for GBTC, which have been easing up as people, not the windows open, people who've wanted to get out have been able in large part to move out. A lot of the BlackRock and the Fidelity ETFs have been getting the lion's share of inflows. And yeah, it's been about the out and the in. And then Valkyrie added BitGo as a second custodian for risk mitigation. Smart move. And if we look at the other news for the week, we're cleaning up things from the 2021-22 bear market and everything falling apart and companies getting sued. Celsius, they're coming to more terms with creditors. FTX, they're coming to more terms. We've got a note here. Genesis, there was a note. Genesis and Gemini, they're coming to a settlement, so they're getting things. And then, yeah, and then let's go into the mining stats for the week. This is courtesy of No BS Bitcoin going to the mining stats, so throwing the lightning after this. We have got the network hitting an all-time high, 527 exahash. That's crazy. And this is just going on without any change. Let's look at this from a much longer perspective timeline. If I can figure this one out. I can't figure it out, and I don't want to do it in the live stream, but in the last year, it has effectively more than doubled the total network hash rate. And that was in a bear market going sideways. So that is something worth noting. Mining rewards. If you go to nobsbitcoin.com, actually it's mempool.space/mining. You can get all the information here, which tells you about the latest blocks, who's mining them, which pools, as well as the rewards summary and total blocks. Unknown. That could be a private miner for all we know. Ocean Protocol, they got a block. So yeah, it's been, just keep a note, Foundry and Antpool, those mining pools are KYC. And then we'll go over to the Lightning Network stats. We lost it. Okay, let's get this back again. Share the screen. We want to go back to the Lightning Network. There we go. Got your map. You got the total stats, nodes, channels, total Bitcoin locked up within the network, flowing back and forth for liquidity. It's been on a downside, but we'll see where it goes. All right. Oh, I checked out prices. I think that's taking us right into the big juicy part I wanted to get into. Yes, let's cue this up. share this tab, and then go back to here. So the main thing I wanted to talk about, which all the Bitcoin news that it seems like things have been muted and quiet. So it's the Bitcoin ETF. And I'm going to set up a post either this week or next week. Um, Harry Surdock, he's a miner and probably one of the more thorough and level-headed people in the Bitcoin space. He did, God, like a 2-hour pod with Harry McCormick on what Bitcoin did, talking about, okay, we've jumped the chasm of now that we have a Bitcoin ETF. There's been this psychology shift where Bitcoin is no longer going from we're trying to gain legitimacy and we're doing all of our things to we're legitimate. Now what? And it's sort of looking ahead. I'll have a post for that. All righty there. And getting into the meat of things, our world, what the thing that came out the most this week is how our world is changing. And we're in a very big space. And I'm going to draw together information from a lot of different vectors that may seem unrelated but have a common thread. So we're in a world where, and I've mentioned this before, how humanity's going through an awakening. The rising human consciousness is a real thing and it's happening. And it's this awareness that I guess you could say on an energetic level, if you look at things through a lens of existence being multidimensional, where existence isn't just the five senses world, but it's more than that. The world is, and humanity is going through a transformation right now. At this point in space and time, it's going through a transformation where claim it to multidimensional things, claim it to where our planet is, our solar system, our galaxy is in the physical realms of space, and we're moving into higher energetic frequencies. However you want to attribute it, the net result is that on a consciousness level, humanity is awakening. Things, think of it like we've only been limited to 87.3 to 89.9 on an FM radio. And all of the information and the music and the news that comes from everything broadcast on that frequency range. And now, all of a sudden, if we were the radio kits, for the longest time, we've only been able to focus on what's been broadcast in that frequency range. But now we're opening up and we're getting hardware and software upgrades where we can now tune in to everything in the 93 and the 94 and the 95 up to 107.9 frequency range. Slowly, and we're taking in more information and what we are aware of, both internally about ourselves and then translated externally to the world at large around us and around the self is growing. And the implications spill across a lot of areas. If you've heard mentioned the book, The Sovereign Individual by James Dale Davidson and Lord Rees-Mogg, deceased, they wrote a book that talked about incentives. And these incentives were, I'm going to bring up the book cover just for the benefit of reference here. It was a book written in the 90s. All right, let's get it. And the concept of the book was, with the changes in technology going on, with the internet and the spread of information, we were going to transition from a model of scale and centralized everything to a much more decentralized model. And in this book and in their prior book, The Great Reckoning, which focused more on the applications of force in a political sense, they emphasize and map out how over time different technologies changed the ability to harness force, where like the creation of the stirrup meant you could knights with heavy armor, metal armor, could mount and ride horses, and that led to an application of force that wasn't available prior from mounted troops. You talk about how the defense of the castle, that created a factor when the defense became the more decisive military technology. How gunpowder broke all that down and enabled for the growth of the nation state. How technology with travel enabled growth of the nation state and mercantilism and commerce. How in the 20th century and 21st century, the information age enables people to make much more customized and individually tailored choices of how to live, where to live, what to do, who to associate with, and how through this, Bitcoin essentially is a way to enable this, as well as being a product of this. And in the sovereign individual, they break down how pretty much the things we've been going through over the last 10, 15 years, where there's a breakdown of centralized authority and becomes much more localized. And we're seeing that in real time, how currencies, large currency regimes, the petrodollar, all this is breaking down as now nation states. What started as an individual level with the rise of the internet and the amount of information exchange, just as with the printing press and how the information available that people could understand the world and also make choices to affect their lives individually. It's the same thing with the internet. And because it's global and it's instantaneous, these changes move much more rapidly. So there's hook number one. Hook number two is, let me go to my notes here really quick. All right, I don't have my notes. Shucks. Hook number two is looking at things from that awareness standpoint. I'll just wing it here. From an awareness standpoint, we're seeing a divergence of worlds where we've got the old world and the new world, this new world that looks at where we're going, how humanity can organize itself, and that awareness when we look at that and contrast it with the old world. So you have this world that people who could garner the resources both in consensus, consent, political authority, financial authority, monetary resources, essentially to, you could say like the elite, the people on top, the powers that be, however you want to label them, the people who had control over the institutions that made the rules and managed a lot of the resources in this centralized world. They're the ones who benefit from the way things, well, were, where you have, um, the world that we have, the crumbling world, where you had the large global institutions. We, humanity, is at a junction where we're battling between those that are trying to hold on to this old world because they're incentivized to benefit from that, and this new world where people are incentivized because of a benefit, and it's going to get rid of a lot of the corruption that festered and grew in this old world. Humans are a simple species. I break it down to three things. We are inherently lazy. We always try and we respond to incentives, and we always try to maximize the gains of our energy inputs, whatever it is, to get the most for the least. And those all tie together. And so people are incentivized to hold on to the way things were. Our forms of government, using government as a means of redistribution of resources from one favored group to another, one favored constituency to another, and then fighting with each other over the resources to allocate and keep for ourselves. Plain selfishness. I mean, it's the same thing as when you have two tribes of monkeys fighting over productive territory. It's no different in humans going to war over land resources and areas with oil or food or water access or whatever it is. Well, part of this new world is this awareness. Like there's a level of consciousness that lies and deceit that were able to work and be kept hidden are no longer hidden, because intuitively our bullshit detectors are kicking on hard, and we can tell when something's not right. And with the availability of information and the instantaneousness of social media and video platforms, well, that's social media too, and all these platforms were able to individually share information and then amplify it. The bullshit, people can dig and find the receipts and call out the acts of deception. That's why you have so much censorship, because the people with a vested interest in the way things were, they're fighting to hold on, and the only tools they have in desperation is, well, we'll censor that. We'll work in collusion. We co-opt the people who run these tech platforms into our camp and then use them to our benefit. Well, that's going to end. If there's anything from what Elon Musk has done with Twitter/X, it's break that cycle, break that chain, break that connection. Anything else you want to say, fine, I could really care less. But as far as tangible actions, it's done that. This new world has a value system, a level of consciousness, where the sense of oneness isn't the old world definition of collectivism, because collectivism is still centralized. It's still centralized. We have a centralized entity controlling the dictates of what falls into acceptability of this collectivism. It's a collectivism where there's an inner recognition of awareness that everyone's unique, everyone is sovereign, but we have common interests. And those common interests are basic things like, are we being nice to one another? Do we want to be nice to one another? That's a universally accepted idea. That's a value system also of higher frequencies, where in lower frequencies, this is where I get into the multidimensional universe. Existence is all frequency. just like that radio station, that we tune into with our awareness. All the barbarism that humanity's ever perpetuated and perpetrated upon itself were expressions of lower frequency. As our connection to higher and higher frequency grows, the values change as well. And this is all tying in. And humanity, yeah, we're going into it. And I'm going to show you a couple illustrations that point out the split in a tangible way. First one, Jesse Meyer. Are we sharing yet? No, we need to bring it up. So he goes by the name Croesus. He's got a blog, one in a species, which is on Substack. And he's very insightful, a little dry, but insightful, which if that's what you're looking for, he's a good guy because he also gets good sources of information too. So he had in one of his posts, why the yuppie elite dismiss Bitcoin. Yuppie elite, you can automatically translate as those of the old world. And I'm going to read this. Talking about the IQ framework seems to hold up decently with regard to the Moon Boys, but it doesn't account for the Dans and all the other brilliant yuppies that I know. The person I talked about who basically poo-pooed Bitcoin. When I thought about what is defining difference between Bitcoin maximalists and my yuppie elite friends, the surface level distinctions that popped out were political, libertarianism, Trump support, Second Amendment rights, and Black Lives Matter. But these stem from a deeper divide, the degree to which a person has trust in a system, embracing in the old world and the old systems. As a lifelong liberal recently cast into the netherworld of distrust of both parties, this is disillusion and growing awareness away from that old world that one necessarily acquires when journeying down the Bitcoin rabbit hole far enough, because Bitcoin is technology of the new world, the decentralized world, this higher frequency world, where we are headed. That is an inevitability. That is an inevitability, and we're headed there. We're headed there, just like a beach ball held into the water is going to pop out of the surface. This is an inevitability. It's a question of what lumps we're going to be hitting along the way. I feel reasonably qualified to speak to the liberal condition. At the heart of it is the belief the system can work if only it can be architected well enough and administered competently and compassionately. My personal journey to Bitcoin maximalism involved painful disassociation from this fundamental worldview, specifically in the course of digging in to understand central banking monetary policy and the irresistible levers that come with it. As an aside, I went to business school and they didn't teach us anything about that. And I agree, it's not a malicious omission. It's just, this is the world that is, so let's study the world that is, not look at the world that will be. The business leaders today are completely unaware that they're passing on the shoddy propaganda version of monetary theory, blah, blah, blah. So yes, there's that. We've got that, and that's a perfect example. We're starting to see signals like that illustrate the old world and the new world, because it's happening. And it's going to be a bumpy ride. There's going to be a lot of drama. And people who are incentivized and still embracing, I'm just going to say that are still embracing the old world, they're going to fight. They're going to try and censor. They're going to try and do things. If you think about all the woo, all the boogie woogie, all the conspiracy theory stuff out there, it's not conspiracy. It's just pointing out what incentivized actors of the old centrally controlled world are doing to further that path of centralization. They're wasting their time. They're trying to drive down. They think the road's going to keep going, but it's a dead end. It turns into a gravel road with ruts and burr patches, and it's a dead end. It's a dead end road. If we were able to make that jump from a centralized world and start transitioning to the new world, it'd be such a smoother path. There'd be less damage. But in the end, we're still going to get here. It's just a question of how much drama we're going to experience and how much damage we're going to end up having to work through in this process. So take heart. We'll be fine. We'll get there. I wanted to bring out another signal here. And this one is through Zero Hedge. I've come across, what's the gentleman's name? Mark. It's either Jeftovich. I'm going to go with that. Incentives are everything. And again, talking about the elites, talking about the people incentivized to the old world. Am I getting this on the camera right? The old world. And drawing this distinction. He makes a reference to the sovereign individual. They both predicted a future. They saw a future where centralized, hierarchical, top-down models of nation-state governance would break down and be forced to yield to a type of free market competition for citizens, producers, and tax revenues. Absolutely. We're seeing this in real time. Now, like a glacier, it moves slowly, but when it moves, it ain't going backwards. It moves. And yes, here we go. I think those 3 points, incentives. People act out of their own self-interest. And I want to get to the point. The whole article is an illustration of this. I've got a link in the show notes for this. This sovereign individual quotes on Twitter, which is actually pretty good. Jesse Myers thing. And then I've got another one. Is there something specifically I need to point out on this, or is it just the whole thing? No, it was the whole thing. It was talking about it. And it's yeah, the whole thing. Talking about walking away. Here we go. Yeah, basically what he says in this piece is that those who are the positions of authority and power, they are doing things as they try and do things to hold things in. It pushes more and more people. And that's what we're seeing. All the stuff, all the warfare, all the censorship, all of the damage done for reasons not openly disclosed, all that stuff. It touches people and causes a pain, which wakes people up, because people, it's like when you feel pain, you want to know why. It's like, my hand's burning. Why is it burning? My eyeball is starting. I'm losing my eyesight. Why? I'm bleeding out of my toe. Why? What happened? How did that happen? Oh my God, my finances are getting screwed. We're experiencing this emotional pain from warfare and conflict, things going on at the border. What, why? And that wakes people up. So in a way, by causing more pain, centralized actors, the old world, they end up being the catalyst that speeds up the transition. So it's a real crappy way of having to do it, but that's how humanity works. It seems like there are no smooth rides. Those things, they happen, but it's not them. It's a course on the menu, but it's not what that's not everything the restaurant serves. It's but one course that the restaurant serves. How about that? And then I've noticed this, and I think this video, kind of pulling this together on the fly, kind of helps me to piece this together. I think this viewpoint become more refined and clear, and the message will be better able to come out in the future of saying we're in a transition, and anything we can do to facilitate this, that's the overriding thing. You know, if and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and crypto tokens and whatnot, this is all but one component in this space. Like yeah, what that means in the bigger picture for me, I don't know. But this is just one component in this space. If you want, and this is all hook in my final hook, one of the sources of signals that I use is it's a gentleman named Lee Harris. He is British, and I don't know if you want to say he's an intuitive, but he channels, meaning we're going back to multidimensional world. He communicates telepathically with beings that are not, I don't know if they're on Earth, but he's able to tune his radio to talk to beings who are broadcasting at the higher radio frequencies and get this energy along with all the information and the values and whatnot at this higher frequency, the rising human consciousness. It's almost like humanity's on a journey. We're on a path. And along this journey, as our awareness and the rising human consciousness is happening, we're discovering new things. And being able to, and some people, what they'll do is when they have this discovery, this insight, like say the people who we thought, oh my gosh, it's so intuitive and so insightful. How come I didn't think of that? It's like someone further along the path writing down and sharing the information for what they discovered further along the path. And communication with beings that are further along this path, you can consider telepathy and channeling, to use the common term, like that. It's just being able to put on the CB radio or the walkie-talkie and communicate, tap into the frequency, the radio range, and get information of what they're saying. Hey, yo, you know what? You don't want to do that, but you're going to be doing this, and you need to focus on that. And that is what I get from his messages. He's got a whole spectrum of stuff, but he puts out a monthly update where there are certain themes relevant to a given moment in time of things to be aware of. And he also does an annual. For the last 3-4 years, he's doing like an annual update where it's kind of like big overarching, bigger picture themes. I've been listening to him for, 2018, 2019, I mean, pre-COVID days. And everything a lot of things he's come across have had accuracy and have tied into this. And I think within the last half year, the things that have been pointed out fall smack dab right in with what's happening right now between transitioning to the new world and pulling away from the old world. And I think there's a link in the show notes, but I think that is a good resource as well. At least for me, I like using it for understanding, getting another source to kind of see where we're at and what's going on, and kind of add, I don't want to say validation, but so much as just a signal, just another signal. So, wasn't quite the direction of things. Wasn't all crypto, but I think that crypto and Bitcoin has a role within this context, and it also is worth explaining the larger whole that this is a part of, because we're going to see this more and more until it's clear as day, and it'll be dead obvious Oh yeah, yeah. When we went through the transition from the old world to the new, yeah, that was, oh man, that was one hell of a ride. And so it goes. Well, you can follow Tiny Crypto Blog at tinycryptoblog.com. You can, if you have a WordPress account, you can subscribe. Oh, hello. If you have, you can also sign up via email, so we get everything sent to your inbox as it's published. I've got the weekly top videos, help inform yourself, stay in the loop what's going on, learn the signals, and the weekly post where you get a 10,000-foot view of what's going on with simple, even just reading the headlines. Everything is linked. I can also follow along on, I'll just say you can follow along on the video and audio platforms listed in the show notes. And with that, be well, everyone. Talk to you soon.